Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of the Furtadio Experience. The episodes where you will become more conscious, more engaged, and fulfilled to magnify the impact you have on humanity. And today's guest, no better than the one and only Danny Miranda, host of the Danny Miranda podcast, also a host of a new podcast that I'll let him tell you more about later on. He is on a mission to inspire people to be the highest versions of themselves, help them live happier, healthier, and wiser lives. Might have got that a little bit off, but Danny, happy to have you here. Really excited for our conversation today. And, I start this first question with every guest, and we'll just dive in from there. Who is Danny Miranda, and what is your story?
Danny Miranda is a lover of life, somebody who just enjoys pursuing the highest version of myself. And I'm so grateful for you bringing me on today. And you said, I don't know if I got any of, or if I messed some of it up. You didn't mess any of it up. It was awesome. And it was great. And you introduced me way better than I could introduce myself. But I'm happy to dive into any part of the story. But I guess I'll do a brief overview. I was... let's say I graduated college and I thought that making money was going to be the path for fulfillment and success, like I guess a lot of people do. I pursued that path with everything I had, really lacked a sense of soul and purpose in doing some of those things. And later, I'm happy for those experiences, for they led me to this moment. But I got to a point where I was fed up with the making money aspect for the sake of making money. I got to a place of wanting to pursue what I enjoyed doing for the sake of pursuing it. It was a long journey to get to that point. A lot of looking inward, a lot of meditating, a lot of focusing on nothingness or the breath for 20 minutes, an hour, over and over, day after day after day, with no expectations of actually getting anywhere, just enjoying that present moment. And that led to this place where I'm in this beautiful place that I couldn't have even drawn up myself, of podcasting, connecting with amazing, amazing people like yourself, and just being able to pursue the highest version of myself every single day and pursue passions and joys. So extremely grateful to be here. Extremely grateful to just be on this floating rock in space. So thanks for having me on, Justin.
Absolutely. No, that's beautiful. And something that I'm hearing over as I hear you talk is this pursuit and process. And I'm kind of starting to connect the dots between a lot of your content and your well-being. And honestly, since the first time now we're having a conversation. And before we kind of dive into that, I'd like to even go back a little bit further, because you're talking about what most of us do when we get out of college, or maybe it's when you're out of high school, you drop out, you want to make that money, because if you make money, then you're going to have the status, you're going to have the success, you're going to be able to buy what you want, you'll be able to, somewhat buy happiness. But it seems like you hit a roadblock, and I'm curious if you could walk through some of those experiences for those that are maybe feeling and starting, they're going down this journey of like, oh, I just graduated college, I'm going to go make it big, but they're just finding that there's something empty, because I've thought about that before, and I'm just curious what your experience was like when you were going through that.
Yeah, the way I would identify that period of that roadblock was I had the work that I was supposed to do, but there was a lot of things that I would distract myself from doing the work with. A few things for me personally. It was drinking a bottle of wine every night. It was gambling on sports, and it was watching Joe Rogan. And so I cut out two of those and doubled down or tripled down on one of those, being the podcast aspect of it. And it's really just fascinating. And so for someone going through that position of not really understanding where they are and understanding that what they're doing right now doesn't feed them in that way, the first thing is identifying it. Once you've identified it and said to yourself, okay, I am not doing what aligns with a greater purpose for me, the best way to identify it is the procrastination. Are you procrastinating doing what you're supposed to do? And then looking to what you're procrastinating on and saying, is there anything here? For me personally, I didn't mention one more thing. I was also procrastinating by going to the gym, was another way I would procrastinate. So I looked at the gym and I said, oh, okay, I'm going to the gym. I should become a personal trainer. And that was the avenue that I took to get out of that place. But I mean, going back to that place of roadblock, I think it's so, so important to first identify and then admit to someone else or yourself of, okay, I need to get out of this situation, because from that place, you can then actually make a change.
Right. And you have to be able, you talked about this earlier about this kind of self-discovery, and kind of something that I talk about is like going within. And I'm curious what some of the conversations you were having, like actually, if you don't mind sharing, about inside yourself when you were meditating and inviting a lot of this stillness into your life, and you were probably starting to notice certain thought patterns and were able to kind of identify some of these roadblocks. How did you kind of identify and have a conversation with yourself on where you wanted to go?
Yeah. So here's the fascinating part. When I'm in that spot, I wasn't meditating at this time. And how I got out of it was by speaking to friends. And so I've been thinking a lot about going inward and what exactly does going inward mean? And going inward for me at this point in my life means meditating. That's just what I think of when I think of going inward. And it's what I do on a consistent basis. But I then started thinking, okay, well, that doesn't work for everyone. But going inward works for everyone. How can someone else go inward? Sometimes you go inward when you are just having a great conversation with a friend or a stranger. It doesn't have to be a friend, but often it is. And they ask you questions that mirror you. And so in that moment, you're forced to think, what do I really think about this issue? What happened was I was having conversations with friends, with family members, and realizing I wasn't having a joy for life, realizing that there was something missing, and admitting it to myself after looking at my life and having those conversations. So one way to go inward is to have a conversation with a friend. The problem with this is that it's not like you could get on the phone every single day with a friend and say, hey, I need you to talk to you for an hour about the problems going on in my life, right? Like, that's difficult. But you can do that with meditation. You can say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go inward and figure out the problems in my life for an hour. So I don't know where we were going with that, but I think it's just an interesting insight, was that I wasn't actually meditating at that point in my life to quit the job and get out of that place. I was talking to friends, and that served as my going inward, which forced me to take that step and to quit the job.
Yeah, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like this talking to your friends and family was almost foreshadowing you for your alignment to podcasting and being able to talk and connect with people, because that's kind of how you were figuring it out, and then you really started to figure yourself out. I'm sure, from watching one of your most recent podcasts and videos about what you've learned, I would love to hear you expand more upon like how kind of podcasting and interviewing people that you just find fascinating has really like leveled you up in terms of your conscious and your highest version.
Yeah, it's been a journey of podcasting, and the year has gone by so quickly and so slowly at the same time. That's like the best way I can describe it. It's like I've been so present in those conversations. It's so rare for me personally to be present, fully present, no phone, nothing attached, and have to be in that moment. And so I'm not only doing it on the podcast with the guests that I bring on, but also when I'm having these conversations. And then it's forced me to, in other areas of my life, to say, am I being present in this moment? Am I showing this person that I'm with as much attention as I would a podcast guest? And so that's a really good barometer for me to identify, am I being present in this moment? So that's just one way that podcasting has helped me level up consciousness-wise, but like just the ability to communicate myself, the ability to put the thoughts that are in my head into the world. I've always been fascinated by the way that different musicians are able to just speak, particularly rappers, are able to speak their way into existence to get to a higher level. And it's like, I feel like I'm doing that same thing, where I'm just speaking my truth into existence to help get myself to a higher level, and then also bring up people and help other people get to a higher level as well. So the power of the voice is so underrated. The power of communication is so underrated. And that's what I've learned over the past year.
Yeah, the power of voice is really everything. And it's amazing to have all these, and you talk about all these new tools, whether it be the internet and then you have Twitter, just to like actually get your voice out there. It's amazing. And then you can connect with so many different people. Like, we're literally connecting across the United States, and I'm sure you've talked to people across the globe, and you can talk to them instantaneously, and it's literally insane. And I think one thing that really sticks out to me is your gratitude for life. And I'm curious, because when I was listening to one of your episodes, you talked about being in a place where you weren't full of love, you weren't full of joy, but now you are. And I'm curious of that process of how you continue to invite love and joy into your own life.
Yeah, I love how you said it as a process, because it's not something that you just wake up one day full of love and joy. It is something that you work on day after day after day, and you might not even believe it when you're working on it in the beginning, but then eventually you get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I love life, I'm grateful for life, and it's the result of the things I've been doing. So, how I've got to that point, it started with quitting that job. It's like, okay, that was the first time I'm really like loving myself, trying to become grateful for life, trying to pursue my highest version in some capacity, even if I don't know where it will lead. Then I was doing the habits that are going to help me, help the person tomorrow, even though they might be difficult today. It's like doing 2 workouts a day, even though one can be a walk. Doing one of them has to be outside, doing the 75 hard program, drinking a gallon of water every day, then reading 10 pages of a book, then following a diet, taking a progress picture, checking off those boxes day after day after day. And you do that enough times and you start to say, man, I do love myself. I can accomplish what I set myself out to do. And this is an incredible thing. This is the realization that you can accomplish what you aim to do in any given day is so important. And so I started doing that and started realizing, like, wow, I'm a different person today than I was 75 days ago. And the program is 75 hard for those curious. And that was the first aspect of myself realizing and bringing joy and love into my life. And then it gets deeper. Like your relationship with love and joy and bring that into your life gets deeper as you expand on these habits, as you go harder, as you're able to go more inward. And it's like, you thought you were experiencing joy at 20 minutes of meditation a day. Well, now you're doing 60 minutes. And it's like, oh my God, I have depth to myself that I didn't realize I had. So yeah, it's been a process of meditation, of doing the habits that everyone knows you should do, read, but doing them consistently. And I haven't been perfect with this program every single day over the past 2 years. But if you look at the amount of days that I've spent on the program of 75 hard over the past 2 years, I would guess it's over maybe 300, maybe half of those days realistically from in the past 2 years have been on this program. So of course that person who's on the program all the time of doing what's right for them is going to feel love and joy because I just put in the work of doing it. So I don't know. That was a long answer, but hopefully it was helpful or valuable to at least one person out there or you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and there's a couple of things that I want to dive into. And honestly, I'm gonna start with one, and there's Don Miguel Ruiz wrote the 4 agreements, and one of the things that you were talking about, and I was kind of hearing, there you go, he's got it right there. He's got it right there. Is be impeccable with your word.
That's it, my man.
And I'm curious if, the 75 hard, like those are a lot of wonderful habits and they're great for the mind, body, and soul. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on being impeccable with your word and following through with the program and how much that actually had an impact on you and the way you view yourself and your love for self.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing, being impeccable with my word. Being able to say, I'm going to complete this program or I'm going to die. One or the other is going to happen. I don't care if I fail, I'm going to complete it. And upholding that commitment to self was so important. That made me realize that I could literally just speak something into existence. I could say that I'm going to put out 3 podcasts a week. And guess what? Nobody could stop me except myself. And prior to this, I was my worst enemy myself. I would say, I'm going to start this new business. I'm going to start this new project. And I'd be so down to start it. And it would be amazing for the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But I couldn't stay with my word. And so being impeccable with my word has transformed my relationship with self, transformed my relationship with love and joy, because I know that the only separator between me and the person I want to be is just doing the work, and becoming impeccable with my word has allowed me to do that. So yeah, it's a huge point and a very important book everyone should check out, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm curious, do you have an idea of what your highest version looks like? Or is it all lost in the pursuit of the highest version?
Yeah, I think it's just about getting a little bit better every day. And it depends on the aspect of it. I think it's difficult because there's no way I guess if I did CrossFit, I could quantify, okay, I'm getting faster, I'm getting stronger, I could do this now physically. But it's very difficult to quantify mentally, spiritually. Like, am I closer to God in this moment? Am I closer to self? Am I closer to feeling love and joy? Like, it's somewhat relative. And so the way I think about it is just on a week basis, on a day basis, am I getting 1% better? And like, everyone knows, like, are you getting better today? Like, in your heart of hearts, how you're answering that question. And so I think I go by the internal judge, and maybe that's a cop-out answer. Maybe I should aim to be more rigorous in my execution, but just trying to get 1% better every day, baby.
1% better every day. I love that. And I'm curious how you've put out 3 podcasts every single week. And again, we talked about this video that you made, and you talked about the reflection over the year. Share some of your favorite stories and memories and growth over that past year that you've really recognized, and you're like, oh man, I really did get like 365% better.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite story is probably the story of the day before I was going to put out the podcast to begin with, which was I'd recorded 20 episodes and I felt the fear because I hadn't released any of them. And I said, you know what? I could just scrap this entire project right now. I don't have to do this. Like, I recorded these, but like no one will ever know. Why does the world need another podcast? And I had that fear. I had that doubt. I had that uncertainty of if what I was doing was for ego, if what I was doing was really what I was supposed to be doing. And I just leaned into it and I pushed past it. I don't know if that fear kind of went away for me personally about putting out episodes, but I don't know if I'm immune to that fear ever again. I'm sure I'll feel it at some point again in the future. I think it's just an important lesson to step into it and to notice that feeling. You know that feeling when you're about to do something new for the first time and you know you're about to grow and expand from it? I think about the feeling I got first time I went to the gym of like, man, like this is intimidating. All these machines, I'm so frail. Like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm a fraud. But it's like, if we can notice that feeling of the intimidation of the moment because we know we're about to change in some real way, that is growth, stepping into that. So that's my favorite story because the thing that I'm most proud of almost didn't occur. And I just want to hit that home for people who are on the cusp of starting their own new journey. And it's like, if they just lean into it, they might have been putting it off for a week, a month, a year. It's not too late. You can decide right now in this moment to change and to step into that fear and grow because of it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think there's the quote, and it might be a little bit off, but your dreams and everything you wish to happen are you have to push past those fears. Mm-hmm. And I can even, as I hear you sharing, I even think about myself in my just worrying about being judged.
Yeah.
Like, constantly putting out like, podcast content when I was really early on. And to be honest, I used to care a lot more about the numbers. And one of the philosophies that I really appreciate about you is you're so focused on what you can control. Can you talk about how that's really contributed to your success as a podcaster?
Yeah, I think a lot of my life I was the same way, of just externally driven. How does this look to other people? I felt insecure myself, and so it led me to overvalue other people's opinions instead of valuing my own. And I just got to this place of, because I was doing 75 hard, because I was doing the process and controlling the process, I started to realize, okay, I could just apply the same mentality to meditation, to podcasting, and let me just focus on what I can control in this arena. And it's such a beautiful feeling. It's freeing in the sense, because you are coming at it from the place of, I have no expectations for any podcast to take off, for X number of people to listen to it. It doesn't matter to me. Of course, I would love more people to watch and listen, and I would love more people to care, right? We always will. But I love that I control what I control, and the rest is up to fate. The rest is up to just, and you know what? Maybe I could do a little bit better job of this, because maybe I could put out more clips with no expectation of anything happening. Maybe I could put out more and get more people interested in the podcast. But at this point, I'm just so comfortable with the conversation itself being the win, and everything else after that just being icing on the cake. So that's my perspective now. It might change, but I'm just grateful to got to this place of clear vision and clear focus on the process itself.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm honestly, a follow-up question to that would be, it's really challenging to do that. It's really challenging, especially like you're on Twitter, and it feels good to be, getting notifications and seeing people listen. I'm curious how you actually train your mind. Like, I did this. Like, how do you, because, these notifications that flood in, listeners, likes, retweets, comments, it's dopamine.
Yeah.
But I'm curious how you've almost rewired to do you just psych yourself up when you publish a podcast? How did you make that rewiring?
Yeah, you mentioned psych yourself up when you publish a podcast. I get such a high from the process of posting, because the way I think about it is every podcast I release is similar to an artist releasing a song. And I don't know which of these songs is going to pop. But I know if I do this enough times, it's one of them is, right? And so I think about it like that. And I think about Russ posting nonstop every day for, I don't know, he posted one song a week for 5 years, something crazy like that. I should get the stats itself to figure it out. And then one of his albums took off, right? But I think about it like that, of two things. One is that it takes 10 years to build a career in anything. So might as well make that career that you're going to build something you enjoy doing. And so focus on the process of doing it. And it's every time I press that publish button, I just get such a high of oh, this could be the song that blows me up. Or this could change someone's life in a very real way. And so understanding that, and that it's a time capsule forever, just brings me such joy. It just does. Just about to post and let's go. This could be it. This is it. This is it already. So how do I rewire my brain? I think meditation's definitely helped, of not taking the self too seriously, not identifying with any of the thoughts that come in my mind. That's really important. And just understanding that I could get excited when people check it out, but I don't expect anybody to check it out. If someone says, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry, I didn't listen to your podcast," I said, "Dude, it doesn't matter. No worries. I don't expect you to listen to it." And so I think that's just a really helpful framework and mindset of no expectations from anyone. And that means comments, shares, listens, whatever. And anything that does happen is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, I think there's two things that you said in there that are huge and that really resonate with me, and I'm sure resonate with the audiences. Number one is no expectations, which is literally everything, especially when you're posting content. You never know. You just, you're like a songwriter, you're a rapper, you put the song out, you really don't know what's going to happen. And then number two, just really like doing it for the love.
Yeah.
Like doing it for the actual pure love, and finding that passion that you love doing, and that it doesn't feel like work. And, on the Furtadio experience, we're looking at how people can make an impact. And you have a mission of wanting humans to become more conscious, more healthy, more happy. And I'm curious what your mission is on that, and if you could expand more on obviously you're doing it through your content, but I'm just curious what that world looks like to you.
Yeah, to me, it's just about how am I embodying every moment, right? Like, am I walking down the street? Am I doing it with a smile? Am I going about my day-to-day just saying a joke to somebody I come across for the first time? Like, am I really making the world happier, right? Like, is my presence being a positive value add to the world? And I don't always succeed at this, but when I do, I feel better off because of it. And I notice those moments and I say, oh man, I should be a little bit more like that I was in that moment. And so it's a really helpful way to frame the world is I'm just here to make the world happier, healthier, and wiser. And using that as the framework has been tremendously helpful for me personally to say, should I be doing this right now? Should I be doing something else? So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. What are your thoughts on like how do we make that happen? And we can start talking about obviously, traditional school systems and traditional society, which has us going down these paths of, I think you retweeted a tweet the other day and you were like, that's it. You're like, the tweet was something along the lines of work on yourself so much that a career comes to you. Yeah. Don't work on yourself to fit a career, something along those lines. And I think that really embodies what I just heard you talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I retweeted that because that's what I did, right? Like I created my career podcasting and talking to people. And then someone said, oh man, we'd love for this person to represent our brand in this capacity. So let's hire this person. I created my career myself. You couldn't go on the job posting to find the jobs that I was being offered and the jobs that I got. Like, that's pretty crazy. I designed that career myself. And so how do you find a job that you're going to love working for? It's like you design it yourself. And what that means, creating your own business or literally just putting out content until someone finds you or a company finds you that really appreciates what you've done. So yeah, it's really important to, I mean, it starts with you. How are you going to make the world happier if you're not happy yourself? And so that's just the perspective that I want to approach every day with. And when I do approach life from that perspective, life is better for not only me, but the people around me as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It starts within, right? And then, it ripples out to friends, to the communities, to county, to state, to the whole country. I think it's just like a drop in the water. It's a domino, but we have to start within. And you've talked a little bit more about meditating and working out. And for those that are listening, they might do a little bit of it, but what like encouragements or questions would you ask for them to go further within to think about how can I start striving and pursuing to be a little bit more healthier, to be a little bit more happier, to be in a little bit better shape? Yeah,
I would say start small. Like, there's no reason to do anything crazy. Just give me something that is slightly challenging to you, but it's pretty small. Let's say it's walking. Let's say you're comfortable with like a 20-minute walk. Why not? Can you do a 40-minute walk, right? Like, can you up the ante a little bit? Let this be the call to up the ante a little bit. And I'm living this personally, right? So I had never really run consistently prior to 9 weeks ago. And first time I ran, like, could barely do 3 miles, barely do 5 miles. I'm doing this. And so my friend was also running for the first time in a long time. And he's like, why don't we make it our goal or mission to run a marathon in 12 weeks? I said, okay, let's do it. So I start with 3 miles. I find a plan online, follow this plan a bit, go 5 miles, go 7, go 8. I remember when I hit 8 miles, I'm like, oh my God, I just ran 8 miles. That's the longest I ever ran. Then I go a little longer, 10 miles. But it's like week after week after week. And so most recently, yesterday, I ran 13.5 or 14 miles. Like, that would be unheard of for me to do 9 weeks ago. And the point being is, like, just do a little bit more than you can in this moment. Track it, write down what you've done. And it's okay if it's walking. It's okay if it's a light yoga session. It's okay as long as it's something that slightly expands who you are. You're going to learn from that. You're going to grow from that, and you're going to be better off for it. So, yeah, I think my biggest advice is just to try to track the progress and to stack on top of each other. Track and stack, baby.
Track and stack, baby. That's what's up. I'm curious how you track and stacked with meditation, which is honestly something that when I started, I didn't think I was very good, because I think when you think about meditation,
Totally.
you're like, all my thoughts are just going to go away. But, the more you get into meditation, it's more just like, all right, what thoughts are going to come up today?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious how you track and stack meditation.
Dude, it's so funny that you asked this, because I was just talking to a friend of mine, and I said, will you be my accountability partner? Because I haven't been meditating as consistently over the past month as I would like. And so one of the ways that I'm starting to do that is today I said, I'm just going to do a meditation streak, and we're going to do it together. And I'm going to tell you every day I meditate at the end of the day. So that's what I've decided to do as a way to track and stack, is use somebody who's close to you who also wants to do the same habit. And you see, I did that with running as well. We are a social species. We are better off when we are accountable to somebody. And me personally, I'm a very impressionable person, and I do not want to let down the other person on the other end. I really don't. And so because of that, I know myself, I know my own psyche, and all these habits that I build, they're usually with someone. They're usually accountable to somebody. And I am always better off when I'm accountable to somebody and working with someone. Doing 75 hard right now. I've done 75 hard 3 times. First time I did it with my friend Tej Dosa. We would go back and forth every day on being done with 75 hard. Second time I did it alone. And it went well, but it didn't go as well as I did the first time. Third time I did it, I'm doing it with my friend Zach. Zach, Behavior Hack on Twitter. On Instagram, rather. Behavior Hack. Real great guy. And the third time I'm doing it is better than the second time. Be accountable to somebody. If you want to track and stack, be accountable. That's like my advice to myself, and I hope somebody takes that and uses it for themselves as well.
No, I think that's actually wonderful advice, because I think we are, I think you can be a self-disciplined person, but there's nothing better than having that accountability partner. And I actually had that as a follow-up question, so you kind of took that out of my own hands, and it's just better together, right? I mean, doing things that are hard is so much better together. And I'm curious, as you begin your new NFT journey, what has that kind of new wave? You've been just started making content about NFTs, and you're interested, and you started, sending out signals to the universe about that you're interested in this topic, and you're building a community around it. How have you learned from the NFT community, and how did you get in? And to be honest, break down the NFTs for the beginning listeners.
Totally. So NFT stands for non-fungible token. And if you don't know what that means, and you're part of the 99% of the world, which is completely good and like normal, like NFT, it's like a weird thing to learn or know about, but it's cool. And I enjoy it tremendously. And 500,000 people, I think, in the whole world have an NFT. So a very small number of people. And an NFT is just a digital piece of real estate. It's a digital token or a digital piece of art. And I was fascinated by the way that companies were being created by the dissemination of NFTs. I was fascinated by the way artists were being able to get commission for the first time of their sales. If you look at a painting, right? We have a painting and I say to myself, okay, this is a painting and I sell it to you. How come the artist of that doesn't get a commission of the sale if it's a physical painting? Because it's hard to track, because it's impossible to do, but because of the Ethereum blockchain technology, it's possible to all of a sudden give the artist control and give the artist royalties. But NFTs are way more than that. NFTs go to business and tickets and concerts and all this crazy stuff and restaurants. And I'm so excited by new technologies. I'm so excited by the way the world is going. And being able to see that just excites me. It makes me feel like, oh, I remember what it felt like to be on Twitter when I was in 2008 when I was 13 years old. That was an exciting time. But the truth is, like, I thought that was just because I was a kid. I thought that was just because I was a little weird. But the truth is that it was because the internet was new and exciting to a lot of people. I feel the same way with NFTs. The internet is changing, the world is changing, and just to be on that new wave, to be able to ride it and to learn more about it. I am not an expert in NFTs by any means. There are people who have been in the game of NFTs for 4 years. But what I have done, and what I don't know if I'm an expert in it, is talking to people, learning from people, exploring. Maybe I'm not an expert in that either, but I'm definitely further along my journey. So if I can combine those two of like, I'm going to explore, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to learn about a topic that's fascinating me, all the better. So that's a little bit about NFTs and why I'm excited about them and how my role in the whole ecosystem is playing out.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the whole joy on your face. You're just stoked. You're stoked about what's to come, and I'm just so curious about what you think the possibilities NFTs have for, you mentioned it briefly about giving artists really control, and I have a brief little bit of knowledge, but of course I'd always love to know, and I'm sure the listeners would love to know as well about how that actually might bring together more community, because I think some people thinking about the internet thinks about like the division, which there obviously you have to, accept that. But as someone that's wanting to make the world happier, that means we will probably want to make the world more united. So how are NFTs, or if so, going to, kind of bring people together and bring community together?
Yeah, so what I see happening is communities forming on the internet first. And this has always happened with Web 2, with social media. It's like communities form online rather than in person, which is a crazy concept. But now you add money into the equation. Now you add the possibility that when this community rises in popular culture, in media, in movies, all this stuff, right? If that community becomes a part of culture in some way, well, now you profit and I profit, and we both do, because we're both part of that community. So it's like if we were both in a Reddit community or both part of the same circle in Twitter, and that part of Twitter all of a sudden the whole world knew about, well, why don't we make money off that? We were the people in the community who made that happen. NFTs allow that to occur. So it's a crazy way to unite people, because money is involved, because there's a monetary aspect of connection, and it's just exciting. Like, of course you deserve credit if the community becomes part of popular culture and you are part of creating that to occur. Of course you deserve monetary credit, but that isn't the case in the social media era, where everyone could know about something, but Twitter could profit from it, or nobody could profit from it. So yeah, just an interesting insight. And I think it's just going to revolutionize the way that people connect to other human beings.
That is kind of wild, because I never have thought about it in that way. I knew I had thought about it as a singular artist, but I didn't even think about it as a community ownership. And I think there's so much value and so much, it's cool, because in a lot of circumstances, a lot of, in terms of, there are a lot of power is located at the top, but it seems like NFTs really decentralize that power, and give more power really to the people.
100%. I mean, the fact that artists, musicians are now going to get royalties for their music, and it won't be overnight, and it won't be in 2 seconds, I don't think, but it's just like the power and push towards that is so exciting, because for so long the record labels were we're taking advantage of artists. And for so long, I'm just so excited for the power of the creator to rise. And I think that NFTs allow that to occur in a real way, an exciting way that I'm just excited to be a part of.
Yeah, no, that's insane. And so I kind of almost want to circle it all the way back. Before you hit publish on your very first podcast episode, I'm curious, did you have any idea this is where you would be a year later?
I had no expectations of where I would be, is the truth. I didn't know, I didn't have any idea of like, okay, if I do this, I'm going to interview some of my heroes. I was just like, I enjoy having these conversations and I'm going to keep doing them. And I'm going to post a schedule for myself of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'm not going to give in. I'm just going to go. I'm going to set the treadmill at a high speed and just keep running. And those were my expectations. I expected to do 100 episodes, but I didn't realize that the passion and joy I had for the process would be greater 12 months from the date of I published than today. So like I have so much passion and joy for the project and more today than I did back then. And that was surprising because I loved doing it back then as well. So I'm just so stoked on that. So stoked. Really grateful.
It's cool. It's cool to see your stokedness, just multiply in amplitude. And I'm curious what that experience was like to interview some of your heroes.
Yeah, man. It's crazy because the internet allows you to do things that never was possible before. I mean, I am talking to some of these people and I'm like, how in the world is this person talking to me? And I've only been doing this for a year. Like it blows my mind. Hopefully will never stop blowing my mind. And even after I've been doing this for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or however long, right? It's like, hopefully it'll never stop blowing my mind that just by asking questions, I was able to get into the room with people I've admired, looked up to, and who have influenced my life directly. There's no words that could express to you how it makes me really feel, but I'm just really grateful for it, man. Like, really grateful for the opportunity and for the opportunity to rise now in this next year and keep doing it and keep getting after it and just keep going.
That's so awesome. That's so amazing. I think I could just feel, the gratitude in your voice and congratulations. But I just think, how much you've been talking about this a little bit more in one of your most recent episodes is about alignment. And how much do you think or credit alignment and just like being you and being your soul to where you are today?
Alignment's everything. And alignment is what happens every time I sit down to meditate. Alignment is what happens every time I record a conversation. And alignment is the result of asking myself the question of, is what I'm doing giving me joy? Is this, you only get one shot at this thing called life. And it's like, why not spend it doing things that give you joy, that bring you joy? And I'm grateful for the opportunity to ask that question, right? Because so many of my ancestors didn't get to ask that question. And so many people in the past didn't get to follow joy and follow passion because they were defending a country or they were trying to put food on the table or they were trying to hunt to get food, right? So to be in this place where I can speak on a microphone, when I can connect with another human being, and that gives me such joy, and to pursue that joy, I mean, how damn blessed am I? So what other, so I feel just so aligned in this moment, and just constantly asking myself, do I feel joy? And there might be a point, right, where I don't enjoy podcasting anymore. I have no idea how that could occur, but it could, right? Like it actually could occur. And so just to keep asking myself, do I feel joy in this moment? Do I feel joy? And so I hope that I can stay in alignment, and I hope that I can just continue listening to myself to figure out, if I am acting in alignment with the highest version of myself.
That's beautiful. For those listening and that may, feel a little bit out of balance and are kind of searching for that alignment, do you have, thoughts on how one can, walk towards that alignment and create a process for it?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it goes back to going inward. But I would say a few things. One is to try meditation for 30 days in a row, 15 minutes of just sitting there with your thoughts, with the kitchen timer, first thing upon waking up, with no expectations of doing anything. That would be my first thing, because nothing I could say could get you into alignment better than you can get yourself into alignment. And so that's really important. But like I was mentioning before, one way to do it is to have someone reflect a mirror back to you, whether that's a close friend, or that's going to therapy, or that is just speaking to your phone and listening to what you have to say, almost like as a journal entry or a journal entry itself. All these ways are a way to listen to yourself and to go inward and to figure out what you really enjoy and who you really are. Another way is to spend time in nature, spend time isolated by yourself, but with trees and with grass and just with the vastness that is, if possible, if an ocean or a lake or whatever you have close to you. Spend time there in solitude, but with nature. I think that is such a great way to get into an alignment state, because we are nature. I mean, this is so crazy to me when I realize that. Why do we enjoy spending so much time in nature? Why is that a common theme amongst almost 100% of people? It's because we ourselves are nature. Think about that. We are the very thing that we are looking at, in the sense of we came from the same place of, like, we just lived as animals, and then we became, civilized animals, and we put roofs overhead, which is great. But it also takes us away and puts a barrier between what we were brought up for 99% of our history and today. So the structures that be serve us in a lot of capacities to keep us safe and healthy, but at the same time, they don't bring us to where we truly are. So that was a long way of saying to spend time in nature as a way to align yourself. And meditation, therapy, talking to a friend, journaling, speaking out loud, journaling, recording yourself, and spending time in nature. If you do one of those consistently for 30 days straight, I promise you, you will start to have insights about yourself that you otherwise didn't have. And do it with no expectations. Don't say to yourself, I'm only going to meditate if I know I'm going to be in alignment in 30 days. That might not happen. But what will happen is you will take a step that you didn't know you were going to take prior to that 30 days. That will help you get to a place, maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, that will get you to a place where you're saying, wow, life is a lot better today than it was a year ago. And it's just a result of doing the things that you know are going to help you. Like I just mentioned, all those things will help you. Almost 99% of people would benefit from doing one of those things on a consistent basis. So do one of them and help get yourself into alignment. Please, 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 from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I love that. And as we, wrap up this conversation, I think there's so much wisdom to do that, because one of those activities might suit one person better than the other. That's why you gave them a multitude of options, and it's the process, right? Yeah. And that's why it's a process, and then no expectations. That to me is like kind of the formula to figuring it out, because everyone's different, right? Everyone is different. And so then we get to create our own formulas for our own selves. And so as we, wrap up this conversation, I would love to have you, give an opportunity to share where the listeners can find your work, and also, some parting words for the listeners as well.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure, as always. And you could find me at Hey Danny Miranda on Twitter and Instagram, and search YouTube Danny Miranda. I should come up, hopefully. And some parting pieces of wisdom is just, 2 years ago, man, I didn't want to get out of bed. I was wondering what the purpose of life was and if I even have a place here. And so it's like real deep stuff. And everything I spoke about for the past 50 minutes comes from a place of knowing that I was out of alignment, that I wasn't pursuing the highest version of myself. And I really just hope and pray that something I said sparked something in someone who needed it in that moment. I really, really hope so. And if it did, send me a message, please. And I would love to help in any way I can, because I've been there. I've really been there. Like, I know what it feels like to just not want to get out of bed, not care if you get out of bed, not like ask yourself deep, dark questions. I know how that feels. And I'm in a completely different place 2 years from that point. And I know it's possible for a lot of people. And I want to help more people get on that journey and get on that path. So that's my parting piece of words. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to share my story and share what I've learned over the past 2 years.
I'm so appreciative of you coming on and sharing that. And for those of you listening, he does respond. He responds to Twitter DMs. You can comment on his Twitter stuff. He's engaging. He's interactive. He really is, trying. He's living his mission of helping people become happier, healthier, and wiser humans. So thank you so much today, Danny. I'm looking forward to continuing to follow along and connect on Twitter, and maybe one day we connect in person. So appreciate your time.
Thank you.